Welcome to Cycling Fashion Week, the only global podcast purely focused on cycling style, fashion, lifestyle, philosophy, and fashion. I am your host, Alex, joined this week by my co-hosts, Warren, and it's the return of special guest, Italian Alex. Tony is away this week. He's got some stuff going on, but we still wanted to release an episode, and we decided to get Italian Alex back on the program. Guys, we are back. How are you both doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's good to be back on the pod. It's been about a year since I've last spoken with you guys on the podcast.
It's been a year?
It has. I think it
Wow.
was like late December, early January. It was around the time that the World Tour teams were releasing their 2022 kits and we were rating them. So I think it was like deep in the off season, but I've been away for 11 months now. But in the meantime, I've been listening astutely to every episode and chiming in on the side in the comments or DMing you guys directly. So I've been gone as a third mic, but not fully removed from the commentary that goes on in the podcast.
You've been marking down the days like in prison, just waiting to come back on. Like the fact that it's been 11 months. Maybe it's because we talk off the side a lot and we mention you a lot on the podcast. I thought it was like 6 months.
I had no idea it was that long. I last saw Italian Alex at the Grand Prix Cyclists in Montreal. He was looking good. The legs were smooth. The calves were sharp. And here he is back on the podcast. Speaking of astute listeners, as Italian Alex has been for those 11 months, our astute listeners, I'm sure, noticed that my regular ad read at the beginning of the podcast was absent today. So yes, I should probably explain that to our listeners. We took a little break for the last month, a well-deserved break, I would say. I mean, we launched the podcast in, I believe, September or October of 2021, went nonstop with a podcast every other week for a year. And Warren, Tony, and I really needed a little break there to recharge, get some new ideas, take care of the other aspects of our lives as well. We decided to take a little break. We're back now. We're ready to go. We're going to release more episodes. But we also, during that break, kind of, thought about the future of the podcast, what we envisioned there. And we felt that for the podcast, it was best at this point for us to go sponsor less. Our contract with our former sponsor, Le Club, who, we love, by the way, great shop. Go keep shopping there. Great coffee shop in Montreal. Great website, leclub.cc. Make sure you go check them out. Again, our contract was up at the end of the year, and we decided not to renew it because we're just so busy in our regular lives with work, family matters, that we didn't want the pressure of having to release a podcast every other week when you have sponsors. Obviously, you have contractual obligations. You have to release on a schedule. We didn't really want to do that. We wanted to keep the podcast as a creative outlet for us and really release it when we have something interesting to say and when we feel like it. And we felt that going sponsorless at this point was the best way for us to do that. So no more sponsor. We're going rogue. We're just going to dish the hottest takes out there at this point. They may be on a more random frequency. We used to release every second Tuesday. It's going to be a little more random at this point, but the episodes and the takes will keep coming. Don't worry about that.
So long as there's stuff to talk about in the cycling world, we'll still be turning out content. We just might take breaks more frequently than every year and a half. And yeah, I just want to reiterate what Alex said. We're still like big fans of Le Club. It had nothing to do with them. They weren't, I don't want any conspiracy theorists out there to think otherwise. I would still encourage you to shop there or get coffee there. I was going to make a joke about how we were using the club money to pay for Tony, and that's why he's not here this week, but kind of missed my window on that. But anyone who's a regular consumer of cycling media and content might find the timing kind of funny, because I myself, until very recently, was a CyclingTips Velo Club member, which basically just meant like a yearly paying member for the content, got access to Slack, that kind of thing. But if you are any kind of even casual reader of Cycling Tips, you may have seen that there were some pretty high profile layoffs there. The editor-in-chief, Kaylee Fretz, one of their main tool nerd guys, Dave Rome, and also a sort of behind the scenes editor, Matt Denef, they were all laid off by the parent company Outside, which it was a lot of chatter on the Velo Club Slack and then on the forum. And I also follow a lot of those guys' personal Instagram. So it was a big story. And I think a few writers at Cycling Tips have since resigned as well. So I don't know what's going on over there. It is a strange time to be working in cycling media. I don't know, Alex, would you say that's really the only model is doing it for free?
I think so. I mean, has anyone ever figured out how to make money from cycling at this point? I mean, cycling teams don't make money. Cycling events don't seem to make money. Cycling brands, do they make money? I don't know. It just seems like cycling in general is a commercially inept sport. I've already said that before. I guess at both ends of the spectrum, you've got probably the NBA or the NFL, and at the other end, you've got cycling, the UCI, just not being very commercially savvy. I guess, yeah, same thing for cycling media. I suppose big layoffs happening there. To be honest, I think the only business model that works for cycling media is like us. It's to do it for free. It's to not make money from it. That's the only way to make it work.
Yeah.
You don't have any sponsors, no obligations. You just go rogue. I guess one question for you, Warren. You were a paying member of Velo Club. Should we just buy Cycling Tips at this point? Should we just make them an offer they can't refuse and just offer to buy them and, expand our empire here?
I mean, with the rate they're losing their staff, I think we might be able to afford it. The founder of Cycling Tips, Wade Wallace, who left a little while ago, for who knows what reason, it seems like he's got something cooking on the side. It might just be like Cycling Tips 2.0.
Wade, I think he's Canadian too, right?
Canadian, based in Australia.
Wade, give us a call. Cycling Fashion Week. Yeah,
we'll
give us a call.
I
take over the world.
Yeah. You use our title and platform to start the next.
But it's true. Tips. Like I just feel, the only, for cycling teams, I've said it before, the only model that seems to work is if a team finds like a benefactor or someone who's willing to just throw millions at it. And I don't know, like should the Tour de France take place in Qatar, like the World Cup, and just go full of Qatari money, or should
the prologues in Qatar?
Yeah, or prologue in like Moscow or Grozny or Kazan or something, just Russian money. I don't know. Like cycling needs a new business model, and I'm not sure what it is. I think it's just doing it for free. In the spirit of talking about, I guess, things that aren't going well, I guess maybe our banter, our chatter tonight is reflecting what's going on in the broader economy. But I was noticing that this year's Black Friday sales by various brands were pretty aggressive. I mean, this was some aggressive discounting that was going on there. And this is in the context of another thing that I've noticed. Over the last couple of years, I mean, everybody lamented the craziness of the secondhand bike market. And I think it was earlier this year or last year, I can't remember, but I essentially made a prediction and I said, this is all going to roll over in 2022. There's going to be excess inventory, excess stock. People are going to dump their bikes that they bought in 2020 because they realized that cycling is hard. They wanted to get into it, never got into it. Stuff is going to get dumped on the secondhand market. And that's kind of what I've been seeing too on some of the resale websites there as well. I think, same with various brands. I don't know. Did you guys buy anything in those Black Friday sales? I saw the pricing was pretty aggressive.
Oh yeah, I cleaned up. I mean, it's probably really bad for the distributors who have to take the loss on all the inventory they were required to purchase to keep these brands. But as a consumer and an enjoyer of kit, I definitely took the advantage to buy as much kit as I could at a discounted rate. So when you guys see me in the spring of next year, I'm going to be rolling up in a myriad of 2022 discounted cycling kit that I got on Black Friday.
I did too. Like I couldn't resist to grab a few things. Like I didn't need anything at all, and some of the deals were just like too good to pass up to not just pick up a few things. Like I won't be in full 2022 kit like Italian Alex, but I'll definitely have a few things I grabbed because saw like a lot of 40%, some 50%, and even above that in some cases. Like it was like great for consumer. It made me a little like sad and concerned in the other way, because it was just, I think people looked at 2020 and 2021 and maybe over indexed a little bit on what they produced, or maybe also, interest probably has dropped a bit now that you can do more stuff again and go back to the mall and the movie theaters, as Tony likes to say.
Yeah, I unfortunately think a lot of brands extrapolated that growth from 2019 to 2020, when cycling was the only thing you could do, extrapolated that into the future, overexpanded, overproduced, and are left with a lot of inventory at this point. It's unfortunate, because these are, creative small brands that we like to talk about here on the podcast, and we like to think of ourselves as supporting various brands when we talk with them on the podcast. And we always like there being a lot of brands, a lot of kit to talk about, try out. So it's a little sad that things are going that way. But yeah, I do think drop in interest in the sport and maybe some over optimism on the part of various brands.
I mean, the thing with these brands is most of them preceded the COVID cycling boom, and so they'll persist beyond the layoff of excess kit that came in this year, maybe in the next couple of years, however long it takes for them to kind of hit their equilibrium. They'll bounce back. There's always going to be a demand for premium kit and stylish kit, so it's probably a hit to their profit margins to have produced all this excess kit, but in the long run, I'm sure they'll sustain themselves and will continue buying and rating kit into the future.
I hope so, because if Brandt stopped making kit, then we don't have a show. So
Okay, special segment today. So we are releasing this in mid-December, early to mid-December. The holidays are coming, Christmas, Hanukkah, it's coming. So today we are doing the Cycling Fashion Week holiday guide, or the Cycling Fashion Week gift guide, what you, the listeners, should buy us. And I assume that if we want to be bought this kit, more people want to be bought this kit, because we are the global authority on cycling kit. We are the global influencers. And therefore, if we want that stuff, it's likely that your loved ones also want it. And so essentially, we're giving you gift ideas for your cycling loved ones and your cycling friends at Christmas. We're going to go around the microphone. We'll do it in a format where Warren starts, then Italian Alex, then me, and then we'll go in circle like that with gift ideas that we have for this 2022 holiday seasons. Why don't we start with Warren? What do you got on your letter to Santa Claus?
before I say my first item, I was just wondering if we should like call it like the expensive gift guide. That's a late qualifier I'm adding. So it's like, there's always like cycling gift guides on many cycling sites. I was just wondering if it should be that. Anyway, we'll think of it'll be in the episode title.
We'll keep it expensive for sure. This makes me think like the Financial Times has a section called How to Spend It, and they do these gift guides, and it's absolutely insane. It's like, oh, sure, get your husband like an FP Joule watch for $200,000. Like it's in that level. So we're not quite there, but we're gonna make sure to keep it at the high end of the cycling range.
Get your loved one a number 22 titanium. No, I'm kidding. My first item on my list to cycling Santa, it's really more of a suggestion because I actually already own this, but it's an insulated gilet, which I just think if you don't have one, I would strongly urge every cyclist to either get one or ask for one from Santa or whatever holiday you may celebrate, respective imaginary gift giver. And the reason I say that is I have one from our friends at Albion that is honestly like the best piece of kit I own, in the sense that it's very versatile. I've used it from like early spring. I've used it from fall into the winter. Like I've used it when it's snowing. It's just like really packs down. You can fit in a pocket. It'll keep you warm when it's snowing out, but it breathes well enough that you don't overheat. Albion's obviously not the only one that makes one. I know our friends at Attacker have one, and I believe Tony actually has that. So he's not here to speak to that, but I think there's lots of great brands out there. But I can personally vouch for the Albion one just being like really, really good. And I've been really happy with it. The only reason I haven't used it so far this year is I had a broken thumb, so I hadn't been doing much fall riding. And then when I finally got back on the bike, it was actually on a warm day and I didn't need it. That's my first thing is insulated gilet.
Yeah, and to vouch for Warren's suggestion of the insulated gilet, not to dunk on Warren too hard, but without the broken wrist, I have been riding quite a bit this fall, and the insulated vest has definitely been the most worn item in this particularly hot fall that we had. If you're in like the 5 degree to 15 degree radius, which in Canada is about 6 months or 4 months of the year of when we're riding in the mornings, that vest is perfect because you start the ride with it on and it's so small that you can just quickly stuff it in your pocket at a red light when it gets too hot. And it's the quickest, lightest, easiest item to just throw on. And even if you miss the mark on the temperature range, it's only covering your core, and so your extremities are exposed. So perfect accessory.
All right, Italian Alex, what are you asking Babbo Natale this year?
I just, as part of my Black Friday haul, I got some winter kit, and I'm kicking myself now because at the same time that this happened, the brand MAP released a new line of apparel. It's their training line, which typically when brands release training lines, it's their budget line of kit. But I am just enamored with the style of MAP's training line this year. It's really simplistic in its colorways, but the font they've used for the MAP logo and the cuts and colors are all terrific. And so as part of that release, they had a winter jacket that comes in a forest green. And one of my big problems that I have with winter kit is it's typically either black or even worse, neon, or just a very simple navy blue. And so it's been not common for brands to release one of those alternative kind of trendy colorways for winter apparel. And this winter jacket came in that forest green, which is my favorite color, but I already bought a winter jacket, so I'm kicking myself. That being said, being representatives of style, you can never have too many winter jackets. So first on my list is that MAP training winter jacket. I look forward to, diversifying my winter looks.
I just looked it up. I actually did notice the green one when it, or the forest one, sorry, when it came out. It is a nice jacket, and I would agree with you. I have a winter jacket from Velocio, however you say that. And it's like, navy blue, kind of purple. And there just wasn't a lot of color options, but they also have a birch in this MAP jacket that's it's pretty nice as well. Like, damn, do I need a second winter jacket?
Yeah, shout out to MAP. I mean, just as an aside, to me, my cycling highlight of 2022 was when Jared Smith, founder of MAP, told me that I looked lean and shredded in person. I thought that was incredible. I thought that was accurate, first of all, but it was also very nice of him to say it. So I've been a big fan of MAP ever since. Shout out to Jared Smith, our mate in Australia. Okay, so I'm going to ask Santa Claus for a trip to Los Angeles, California, because I really want to go check out the cycling scene there. I mean, when we think of cycling trips, everybody always thinks, the Dolomites, the Alps, going to Europe. And of course, I want to do that. But I've actually been really interested in the cycling scene of Los Angeles recently. People think of Los Angeles as a city that was built for the automobile, which it largely is. But there appears to be incredible areas of Los Angeles to ride bikes in the mountains, in those canyons, in those parks that are in the city. And recently I was training on an old tax trainer that I have in the apartment that I use in Toronto, and obviously don't have Zwift, don't have Wahoo system on this. So I was watching some videos on GCN Plus. So as we've said before, I don't tend to love GCN documentaries. I find some of them are pretty boring. Their takes are pretty lukewarm. They're always kind of middle of the road takes. But this one was nice because they were going around Los Angeles. They were looking at some of the routes that people ride on, going to some of the cafes where people hang out, and talking to some personalities within the Los Angeles scene. So they had this guy, Rasan Bahati, who's a former pro and now is kind of a, ambassador for LA cycling. And they had Dante Young, who's a crit rider as well. And it was pretty nice that they were explaining what makes Los Angeles a special city for cycling and going a little bit against that perception that it's hostile to cycling and that it's a car city, which again, it is, but it doesn't mean that it can't also be a cycling city. And it seems like the level of fashion, the level of cycling style in LA seems very high in general from what I was seeing there. And I have been to LA a few times for family reasons. My in-laws live in Los Angeles. They listen to the podcast too. Shout out to them. And I've been to some of the shops. I've seen some riders there. It seems like a very stylish scene overall. So I definitely want to go check it out. So on my Christmas list, give me a trip to LA and maybe a little bike rental there so I can go check out what's happening in the LA scene.
I agree. LA looks amazing. Seems like there's tons of amazing mountain climbs. We have a friend in Toronto who I believe she has some family in LA. She goes there, I think, once a year to ride there and says it's incredible. The only reason I wouldn't want to ride in LA is you might run into Phil Guyman, and I really don't want that to happen. Like, having his YouTube videos suggested to me is bad enough. But other than that, LA seems great for cycling.
Okay, Warren, what do you got next?
I keep putting stuff on my list I've already bought for myself, but that's kind of how it works every Christmas is like my family doesn't know what to get me because I've already bought myself a bunch of stuff and I don't tell them about it. Anyway, so my next thing is a new pair of sunglasses from Oakley. They're called the Oakley Hydras. They're actually sunglasses that are marketed as surfing ones, but I found them and they were on sale on Black Friday. I grabbed a pair because I was able to sell an old pair of 100% sunglasses that I had that I used maybe twice. And so I grabbed a pair of these Oakley Hydras and got them in the mail, and they're great. I've always found a lot of Oakleys just not for me. Like the Sutros are way too big for my face. Those Katos are just god awful. So I really like the look of these, and they actually look a lot like the Alba sunglasses I have as well. So yeah, look those up. Those are a nice pair if you're looking for a bit smaller frames and, have a bit of a retro look with the old Oakley logo. They kind of look like, I believe, the really old, like 1980s, I think, Oakley razor blades that a lot of cyclists used to wear, like Greg LeMond. And so if you're into kind of a retro style, they have that. But I just got a solid black frame, and then they have some wilder colors if you're into that.
Warren, I think it's cute that you find the Sutros too big because if I remember correctly, your cyclocross team from a few years ago was sponsored by Bollé, and you had a pair of Bollé sunglasses that were giant. They were bigger than your entire face. This thing was preposterous. Like Warren sent us a picture on our WhatsApp group and he said, "Do these look big on my face?" And we literally could not see your face.
They're huge. I still have those. I do have another pair of Bollés that are actually well proportioned and they're photochromatic lenses. And they're actually my favorite pair of sunglasses. But yes, the ones you're talking about, I don't even know the model name. They're like twice the size as Sutros. Like they might as well cover
They're
my
made
mouth.
for people with huge heads.
I have a big head, but they're still big on me. Bye, Bollé.
Okay, Italian Alex, what do you got next?
All right, next up for me is not, I'm not going too prescriptive with brand, but this might surprise everyone to know that I do not have a bar bag. And so next on the list for me is just a bar bag. Which brand? I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty open in terms of which one I want. I'm not fixed on any particular bag. I mean, they all pretty much provide the same functionality, and I don't know of any of the mainstay bar bag makers that make a bad one. So all in all, I'm just looking for one of those to accessorize on my cross bike specifically, not my road bike. But for some of those longer days in the saddle where you're off-roading, you're a little far from civilization, you can't get easy access to somewhere to pick up food, or you have to carry a bunch of extra equipment because there's big changes in the weather, that bar bag would really come in handy. And so I am on the lookout for one of those. And if you are one of those many people who will be buying a gift from me, keep that one in mind.
I'll throw out a few brand suggestions. Not that I own a bar bag because I definitely don't ride gravel or ever go bike packing. But You've got Roadrunner. Ornat has some good options for the smaller ones. Post is another, Post Carry Co. I think they've got a few smaller ones as well. I've actually heard the Rafa bar bag's pretty good. A friend of ours in Toronto seen Italian Alex. You would even know him. Our boy Dimitri has a Rafa bar bag, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there's lots of good options for small, stylish looking bags, and there's even there's a Canadian company called Farsick, which I believe it's one guy sewing them all himself that also has a lot of good options and pick your colors. And then there's another company in, I believe, either Oakland or San Francisco called Outer Shell that makes a lot of different bags, but I know he makes a bar bag as well.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you don't put it on your road bike, Italian Alex, I'm okay with it. I am sharply anti bar bag on road bikes. On a gravel bike, it's fine. It's in the spirit of gravel, but please don't do it on your road bike. Okay, next up for me, for Christmas, I want some merino wool gear because it's such a great fabric. And I find that brands don't really make a ton of it. Like they don't make so much kit out of merino anymore. So if you want to get me a present, maybe get me some 2012 or 2013 Rafa from an archive sale. Or I think there's Black Sheep that has some good merino jerseys, and I really want to try out that brand. I haven't tried Black Sheep, and just the very fact that they make kit out of merino makes them very interesting to me. So if there's someone at Black Sheep listening wants to send me some merino for Christmas, I'm a taker. And I think also the Slovak brand Isidore seems to have a lot of merino, and I'm hoping that we can maybe get in touch with them later next year and interview them on the podcast because they seem to have some nice merino. It's just such a great fabric. What you said earlier, Italian Alex, about the insulated vest, when you're in that kind of sweet spot of 5 degrees to 15 degrees, which is pretty much a huge chunk of the year if you ride in the northern part of the northern hemisphere like us in Canada. The insulated vest is a great item, but so is merino wool. I mean, it's breathable, it's natural, keeps you cool when you need to be cool, keeps you warm when you need to be warm. In the winter too, I basically live in a merino base layer. It's just perfect. It's antimicrobial. It's the perfect material basically. So I want more merino. Please send me some merino.
Yeah, I'll also take some merino. Send me some too. I actually, one of the things I bought on Black Friday was a merino jersey from Ornat in San Francisco. Actually, that's like hand tie-dyed. So I'm trying it out. We'll see what that looks like. But yeah, I agree. Merino is a wonder material. I've got an Albion merino base layer. That's really great. Thanks for bringing up Isidore. They have a lot of nice stuff, actually. I'm also bringing that up because we sometimes get messages from listeners saying, "Oh, why haven't you talked about this brand or that brand?" And I just want to use this opportunity to say we have a long list of brands we want to talk about, and we're slowly trying to get to them. And Isidore is a big one. Black Sheep's a big one. And we're probably going to get angry messages like, "You didn't mention this specific brand that I really like," which is, I promise you, we probably have it on our minds to talk about.
Brands, get in touch with us. We want to talk to you. We are happy to talk to you. So please do.
Or we'll reach out to you. It's coming.
Brands, get in touch with us and send us some merino.
Okay, we're back to Warren here.
I've mentioned it on the podcast before. I think I even gave it a chameleon before, but I'm going to push it again because I really think in such a consumerist sport, and we all buying new kit, reusable flasks to put like energy gels or maple syrup or whatever concoction you want to put in there. I can't stress enough how useful these are. I bought a few of these this past year. I'm going to get more next year. You can get different sizes depending on how long you're going to be riding. If you don't have any, I would encourage you to ask for some for Christmas. You can get them pretty cheap prices on like Decathlon or various other places. There's a Canadian gel brand. I believe it's called Endurance Tap or E-Tap. Anyway, they even sell like their gel mixture in a giant bottle, so you can fill up a reusable flask. So if you don't want to go to the trouble of figuring out what to put in, you can even just buy gels and refill a reusable flask. Or you'd be like me and just put maple syrup with like a pinch of salt and a bit of water. And that works great. It's very handy, especially on races. And, the added benefit if you're not creating trash, dropping trash on the ground, that kind of thing. This is about the only instance where I actually care about the environment, but I don't really. This is just more useful.
When you get those reusable flasks, though, you got to be careful when you pull it out of your jersey pocket. I've been on so many rides with people with those reusable flasks. When they whip that out of their pocket, and for some reason they just squeeze a little too hard, and it goes absolutely everywhere. It's all over your hands. And when you're riding, if it's on your hands, it's now on your handlebars, and you're wearing that goo.
Squirt some maple syrup in your ride partner's face.
I would also argue that certain gel manufacturers, if you get the rip wrong with your teeth, the same thing can happen. So
imagine like a flask that you can't open easily, and it's in a Rafa jersey, so the pocket location is wrong. So you're riding for about 1 kilometer trying to get your flask out of your pocket. You can't get it out of your pocket. And then once you get it out of your pocket, you squirt it all over other people in the group ride. That's just seems like a disaster. Okay, Alex, Italian Alex, that is, what do you got next?
Yeah, so I had to switch it up a little bit. I looked at French Alex's gift list before we started the pod today, and it was full of so many non-material gift ideas that when I looked at that and looked back at my list, I felt so vapid about all of my choices being specific pieces of cycling kit that I thought I had to diversify my list a little bit, include something that's not directly kit related. And so for my third one, I'm going to go with a food option. In the times I've gone riding in Europe, I like to switch up my food a little bit that I bring with me on my rides, because typically in Toronto, I'll just bring gels with me and they just sit funny in my stomach and I'm so sick of eating them. So being in Europe, I want to try something a little different. The food there is obviously on another level. One of my favorite things to bring with me on rides, because they sit perfectly in my jersey pocket. They're individually packaged typically, and it's just the right amount of food. It's not too dry. It's not too wet and difficult to grip. Are Madeline Cookies, like the tea cookies you can get at the grocery stores in Italy or in France. They're the perfect mid-ride snack. Again, they're individually packaged, so you can just eat them one by one. And I cannot for the life of me find authentic ones that are relatively fresh in Canada anywhere. And I would love to have them again for when I start up my riding next year, so that I can enjoy the real food I'm eating on a ride. So if anyone has the Madeline plug in the city of Toronto or anywhere in Canada, I'll ship them. I don't care. You gotta send me.
Alternatively, if you live in Montreal or in Quebec, you could just go to any bakery where they make them fresh pretty much, and you could get them there. The bakery on my street corner has some great ones that you can get from there. Very literary of you, Italian Alex, to allude to the cookie that that inspired Marcel Proust to write his Brick, à la recherche du temps perdu. I'm not sure what Remembrance of Things Past, I think, is the English translation of it, although it's unclear to me why you would read that in the English translation. But anyhow, very literary of you.
I'm gonna switch it back on you with the most Italian reference of all time. They name drop that in The Sopranos, so that's actually how I know about the connection between Marcel Proust's Memories of Things Past and the Madeleine.
My next desired Christmas present that I want is I want someone to get me a VPN for my computer, because I think I'm sick of paying for FloBikes. I mean, the price is insane, and FloBikes, and look, I love watching the Grand Tours. I love watching the Tour de France. Have been doing it since I'm a little child. Will do it until I die. And now FloBikes has the rights to the Tour de France in Canada. They do an English language feed and they do a French language feed. So more often than not, I'll watch the French language feed. But the problem with FloBikes is that they charge you on an annual basis. It's ridiculously expensive, and you can't cancel it after the Grand Tour. You have to pay for the full year. And I do this. I use this the streaming service to watch NFL football. And I mean, I pay for it for 4 months during the NFL season, and then I'm done. I move on. But FloBikes can't do that. You have to pay all year. So I want a VPN so that I can be the smarter man like Warren and not have to pay for FloBikes for the full year. So, dear Santa Claus, please get me a VPN so I can wean myself off FloBikes.
First of all, GCN Plus, if you're listening, I don't do that. I definitely don't do that. And lots of people don't do that. So you don't need to come up with a block for that or anything like that. I definitely do not use GCN Plus with a VPN to watch every single pro race. I was going to just take the opportunity to shit on FloBikes because they're terrible. And they advertise I don't know if they still do this, but when I first heard of FloBikes and right when GCN Plus was sort of launching up, FloBikes was advertising themselves on a monthly price. So they took whatever their actual yearly price is and divided by 12.
It's so disingenuous.
It's false advertising.
I bit. I went for it, and you get billed annually, and that's it.
I've never bought FloBikes, so I don't know exactly, but I've heard some of their commentators are just brutal for certain. I think for some cross races they've had, and then they also tried recently to broadcast Unbound, like trying to make gravel a thing, and I saw like a not legal stream of it. I was able to see some of it, and it was so boring. Not just because like it's 200 miles on gravel. Of course, it's kind of boring, but like even the commentators, it was very like American Gladiators, rah rah rah, like kind of vibe. So yeah, FloBikes is no good. Just get a VPN, use GCN Plus. But I don't do that if you're listening.
Speaking of Unbound, this has nothing to do with my Christmas list. This is just I'm going to open some brackets here for an aside. But everybody, I'm sure our listeners are very astute. Our listeners know everything that's going on in the cycling world. Do yourselves a favor and go read the long form New Yorker article about gravel cycling and about the horrific murder of Mo Wilson that happened this year, which was a tragic event that roiled the gravel world. But I thought it was very interesting that the New Yorker was kind of, as they were writing about this tragic event, they sort of laid the background of what's going on in the world of gravel cycling, how it came up. They interview people about it, and there's some really good nuggets in that article. There's one guy in the article who's kind of like us. He's a bit skeptical about the whole gravel scene, and I thought that was very funny when I read that. Anyway, excellent article by the New Yorker. I think it's available on their website. It's called "A Murder Roils the Cycling World," and again, it is about the murder of Mo Wilson, so it's about a tragic event. But the overall depiction of the gravel cycling world, I thought, was very, very well done by the journalist who wrote that piece in the New Yorker. His name is Ian Parker. So shout out to Ian Parker for an excellent article that everyone should go read.
I read it too. It really is good. And I would say as much as it is about that horrible murder, it is also like about the gravel scene, which is it's kind of interesting to read like an outsider's take on that.
Okay, we're back to you, Warren, with your Christmas list.
I was gifted a subscription to Wahoo System, and I would suggest anyone out there to use it over Zwift, over Trainer Road. So if you're, looking for a training option to use this winter, I would strongly suggest trying out Wahoo System for a couple of reasons. One is they have yoga and strength workouts built into the plans if you want, and they have videos for them. I actually just started a new plan this morning, and the first day is just yoga. So,
Warren, I'm going to stop you right there. Do their yoga classes ask you to become one with your bike?
No, which is what makes
That's great, because if they did, I would throw that in the canal.
Yeah, and there was no, there was no alms or anything like that at the end of the yoga session.
I hate the spiritual side of yoga.
Yeah, me too. And so I haven't gotten to any of the strength training yet, but I have done a few workouts already. I did their version of the ramp test, which is actually a bit longer. You do a ramp test and then this like 20-minute effort where you have to like hold a certain heart rate zone below threshold. I like the whole system, what's going on. Like a lot of their workout videos have videos. You can also turn the video off and just listen to music if you want. Like there's a entire workout that you can do while watching the first Thereabouts movie. They might have the second one on there as well. I haven't fully explored it yet, but yeah, if you're if you're tired of Zwift or, find maybe Trainer Road is just too is just too like crit bro for you or something, I would suggest trying out Wahoo's system. Like,
do they have training plans for dads who have like only 2 hours a week?
yes, I'm doing a kind of a low volume plan because I'm just coming off of my wrist injury. So I'm doing like a month-long low volume before I up it a bit. And yeah, like they've got a lot of different options. Our sport is so obsessed with like only being on the bike that I appreciate any training program that encourages you to do something not on the bike, because that's also good for you sometimes.
Yeah, like up your FTP while looking jacked.
Exactly. I know Italian Alex is a big Zwift guy, but I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I need to do my zone 2 rides at 48 kilometers an hour. I lose my mind if I go any slower.
Okay, Italian Alex, what do you got next?
All right, I think this is the last one for me. After making that comment about all my gifts being material items, I return back to material items. But I think the biggest gap in my already massive cycling wardrobe is a pair of dripped out off-road bike shoes. And I think that I just slept on getting a pair of nice mountain bike shoes, because I really only use them on my cross bike, and when you're racing cross, like, those shoes get fucked up, so it doesn't really matter how good they look because you're just going to get mud and crap all over them anyway.
Sorry, Alex, can I interrupt just to vouch for how ugly your cross shoes are? I'm not going to call out what they are, but they're so bad.
They're so ugly.
They're so bad.
What is it? Is it Mavic Cross Max?
They're like some old bum. I got some old bum physique mountain bike shoes. They're black, like, they're all black, but they're just so...
They're terrible.
I don't know. Warren, what would you say?
They look like a mountain bike mixed with like a triathlete shoe. I don't know.
How's that possible?
I don't know.
In my defense, they are BOA. There's no like Velcro on there, so like it's not all bad. But like, I definitely need to step it up a little bit with those shoes. So I'm trying to turn my swag on a little bit with a pair of Quack Grand Tour 2 gravel shoes. They come in a bunch of cool colors. I like how it's two-tone. There's like that plastic or rubber lining around the sole. That's one color, and then the upper is a second color, and it's typically like a very neutral tone. And I've seen my favorite color is like the ones where it's got like the salmon lower and then like the beige upper. I think it's a really nice two-tone for an off-road shoe. And if you're wearing a lot of that alt-road or off-road cycling apparel they manufacture, it kind of complements those colorways. So I think that's the shoe I'm going to get for all the off-road adventuring I do next year.
They have both a laces and a dial option. Which one would you do?
Oh, dial. Sorry. Yeah. The BOA. No chance I'm getting laces. No chance.
I actually really like the black lace ones with the sort of gum sole.
So speaking of ugly cross shoes, this is some bottom of the barrel stuff for me. As you know, cross is not a big part of my life. Neither is gravel overall, but I do own a cross bike that I ride gravel on at a reasonable frequency. And I have some old Mavic Cross Max all black shoes from maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago. That's what I've been using for this bike. And they have these laces, so it's a lace up, but it has that system that you could just kind of tie it automatically by squeezing that little piece of plastic there. So you don't actually lace your shoes yourself. You don't do a knot on them. You just kind of tighten the laces using that thing. And this year the laces just snapped. They just broke. And then I was like, well, can I find another equivalent system of laces for this? And I couldn't really find one. So, I went really cheap. I just put on some kind of sneaker black laces on it, and that's what I've been using this fall the few times I've ridden gravel. So Alex, maybe I'll join you on that gravel shoe bandwagon, because it seems like I need some better shoes than what I have right now. Okay, all right, next up for me. So Christmas is not just about receiving, it is in fact mostly about giving. And for this next item that I would like to receive, in fact, I want to receive because I want to give, and I want to give to our listeners, our great, astute listeners who are probably very happy to see us back on the podcast. What I want to give them in 2023 is an interview with Brandt-Sorenson, the brand out of Los Angeles with Nick and Cecilia Brandt-Sorenson. I think it would be amazing content on this podcast. I think we would have a great time. I think it would promote the brand. We would ask them about their creative process. We would ask about why they feel so strongly about protecting what they perceive to be their intellectual property. So this is an invitation again to Nick and Cecilia to please come on Cycling Fashion Week for an interview. We're going to talk about the brand, where you come from, where you're going next. And, for the record, I think the stuff they make looks beautiful. I like that it's bespoke. I like that it's hand sewn. So I would love to have Brandt-Sorenson on the podcast in the spirit of my LA, other present which is a trip to LA. Let's get some more LA on the podcast. So this is what I want. I want to give that to our listeners.
Maybe fifth time's a charm. I think this is the fifth time we've openly invited them on the podcast. Maybe this time.
If we have some listeners out there that are Brandt-Sorenson enjoyers and that want to get Brandt-Sorenson on the podcast, get the word out. Tell Nick and Cecilia that we're the Global Style Authority and they need to come on the podcast here. Would love
We'll
to
do a made-to-measure interview with them.
Bespoke.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else? Because I got one more thing on my Christmas list.
No, I'm through mine. I'm done.
Somebody buy me an expensive bike.
So the last thing I want, and that's an actual physical item, is I want a Cannondale hologram crank set, which is the most beautiful crank set in the history of crank sets. We've talked about crank aesthetics on previous episodes. Cranks have generally gotten uglier over the years, and I believe that cranks. So Tony thinks that cranks peaked with Dura-Ace. Which Dura-Ace series was it, Warren?
I don't remember.
7800. I can't remember. 6800. Anyway,
he's gonna be so mad when he hears this and we can't remember.
The Dura-Ace crank set from like 5 years ago. Tony thinks that this was the peak of all crank sets in history. I personally believe that it was the proprietary Cannondale hologram crank set, the one that looked like, I guess, the sun, where the rays were emanating from the center. I want that because it's the most beautiful crank in the history of cranks, and it would go perfectly, a little bit anachronistically, I should say, because it came later, but with my CAD 5 Saeco, which is the best CAD in the history of CADs. I think if you put that beautiful crank set with that beautiful CAD 5, it would be incredible. I've taken a look on eBay. They seem to go for $500-$600 the complete crank sets, which is expensive, but it's not that crazy. And actually, there's one that I'm staring at right now, which ships from Drummondville, Quebec. So maybe I could negotiate. I don't know. I want a hologram crank set. They're beautiful. They are the peak of crank set aesthetics.
Maybe you should drop the podcast name, see where that gets you.
Or, if Cannondale has an archive of hologram crank sets, let me know. Write me and send us an email, cyclingfashionweek@gmail.com. I'm a taker. I'll make you an offer for your archived cranks.
There's a bike shop in Toronto called My Little Bike Shop that is not your typical bike shop by any means. Doesn't operate on normal hours, or I don't even know if he has a website. It's just run by this one slightly eccentric individual, and he like specializes in random stuff like that. If anyone would carry that, it would be him. He would have it might be used, it might be brand new. Anyway, because that's the kind of thing he would have for sure.
Okay, that's it for the 2022 Cycling Fashion Week holiday gift list. We wanted to give you some gift ideas. This is what we did. This is an annual tradition. So thank you for listening to the 2022 Cycling Fashion Week holiday gift list. Okay, our next segment, this is the return of Into the Canal, where we throw something from the world of cycling or cycling fashion that we absolutely hate into Montreal's beautiful Lachine Canal. Alternatively, the opposite of a canal is called a camélien, which is named after the hardest, most gruesome climb in the world, Montreal's Camélien Oud, which features prominently in the Grand Prix Cyclists de Montréal. By the way, Italian Alex, did you ever ride up Camélien Oud?
No, when we went, we didn't do any riding.
Do you regret it?
Yes. But I mean, the trip when we were there to watch. We weren't there to ride our bikes. I mean, we could have taken the bike share, the Bixies out, and then rode them
Yeah.
up again like the e-bikes. But I mean, I want to do it the right way on like my road bike.
Yeah, because I think to get up Camille on the bike share, the Big C, I think you need an average of like 800 watts for 4 minutes. So it's pretty hard. I
Not if you
mean,
take one of the E ones.
I was gonna say I'd take like an e-bike, and then it would be
Yeah,
like
that'd be
ain't no
fun.
thing, because those things. That's a side note actually. Those Montreal e-bikes absolutely rip. I can. That's the
I've
thing.
already thrown them in the canal for that reason. They're a public danger on the bike paths. There's some Freds out there going 45 kilometers an hour. It's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, this was a long detour, but we are back with Into the Canal. And I mean, you're probably all guessing, okay, they're going to canal the Festive 500 because they do that every year. So, guys, before we go into our respective canals, do we want to dump on the Festive 500 a little bit? I'll give us 2 minutes to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's time for the roast of the Festive 500.
Nobody cares. Spend time with your family. Take a break from the bike. If you do it on any kind of digital platform, it doesn't count. I don't respect you if you do it outside and outdoors. I can also not enjoy myself on the bike too, but I don't know what you're proving.
The more I think about the Festive 500, the more I think it's a conspiracy by Big Mountain Bike for people to give an out for people who really hate their families. Like, people who are just absolutely dreading the holidays. They don't want to spend time with their families. They hate their families. Got an excuse. Festive 500. That's it. You go out. You're a big mountain bike guy. It's just giving you an excuse to not be with your family. It's in the canal. I hate it. I mean, yeah, spend time with your loved ones. That's what the holidays is all about. Don't worry about your stupid mileage during the holidays.
Is it big mountain bike though, or is it big Merino pushing it? Because you're supposed to like wear all the layers and all the winter kit.
Big insulated vest.
Big insulate. It is, yeah.
Gore-Tex.
It's big Gore-Tex.
This all gets back to the conspiracy that big mountain bike is really just a front for big outdoors. It's really Patagonia pulling the strings of all this. Okay, all right. So anyway, we had to do it every year in the holidays. We throw the Festive 500 in the canal. So we collectively did that. Now we each have a canal. Actually, maybe I'll start this one because it's somewhat linked to the Festive 500, but not really. It's more linked to the holidays. But what I'm going to throw in the canal is people with weird cycling diets who are annoying to their families and to their hosts by attempting to maintain their weird cycling diets during the holidays. If you do that, you're in the canal. Chances are, to me, if you have a weird cycling diet to begin with, you're probably in the canal to begin with, because I find these people extremely annoying overall. Oh, I don't drink alcohol because I just want to stay properly hydrated, or oh, I'm on a keto diet. You're in the canal 100%. But people who think that keto diet is somehow good for cycling, and then they're going to go into their families for the holiday. If it's Hanukkah, they don't want to eat the latkes. If it's Christmas, they don't want to eat the mashed potatoes because they don't want the carbs. You're in the canal. Stop it. It's the holidays. Just enjoy yourself. Ditch the Festive 500. Ditch the weird cycling diet.
Yeah, and like even if throughout the whole year you're keeping yourself on a rigorous diet, I mean, respect, do what you want, but holidays is like the one time of the year when you have explicit permission from everyone to just go goblin mode and eat and drink whatever you want for like 10 days. So take advantage, take that cheat week or those 10 days of cheating and just indulge.
I'm sure even the pros do it. Like, it's important for your mental health to just, let loose a little bit. So I'm sure, start training in January. Don't worry about it. Okay, Italian Alex, what do you got in the canal?
I am throwing the influenza / RSV into the canal. If you haven't noticed, there's been a serious uptick in flu cases, RSV cases across Canada, and normally I don't get the flu shot or pay any mind to it, but this year, as of like last week, I actually caught it myself, and dude, it is worse than COVID. I got fucked up by the influenza strain this year. It's been over a week now. I haven't touched my bike. I've barely left my apartment. I tried to get out a couple times to go for walks for sanity's sake because I live alone in a one bedroom, and I walked from my house like 400 meters to the closest park and I was out of breath. It's been terrible. And so this is, as it ties back to cycling, as Warren knows, and as our friends know, I am like compulsively riding my trainer. And as a result of this sickness, I have had to let the trainer collect dust. And as a result, I'm losing my mind.
Yeah, I just want to note that Italian Alex was, I believe, on the high volume trainer road plan. So he's out here logging 3 hours Zwift rides every night. Like, good, you need a break.
And maybe that's why you got sick too.
Yeah, seriously.
No, I've done this in my defense. To add to that, I've done this plan before. I did it all last year. I was fine.
Yeah, I know, and you were way too fast this year. So.
I've also been screwed by some weird influenza that actually landed me in the hospital in Toronto here when I was here for work, away from my home, alone in my little apartment, and I just couldn't go to work. I was in my bed, far worse than COVID, was throwing up, ended up in the emergency room in another province than my province of residence. So anyway, it was awful. But yeah, it's been bad out there. Didn't even lose weight either. So from a watts to kilo perspective, wasn't even worth it. I think I just lost watts. It was terrible. Okay, Warren, what do you got?
I feel like I'm keeping the spirit of like vaguely related to cycling canals this week, but I'm going to throw FedEx into the canal. And the reason I'm doing that is I recently ordered from an American brand. I'm not going to name the brand because it's not their fault that FedEx sucks ass. I had it shipped from US to Canada. It was a small package. It was just like, it was a jersey. There were some duty fees, as often the case. First of all, FedEx's online duty system sucks. Like, it's not like DHL where they just send you an email, go online, pay, it's super easy. Like, FedEx was this convoluted system where I got a phone call first. Then they told me the URL to go to. I had to enter my tracking number, and then I paid it, which I did immediately, but that was not reflected to the package itself. And so the next day, they attempted delivery. The delivery guy shows up. I live in a building. For whatever reason, they can't get the concierge to call me. So they didn't deliver it because I hadn't paid. They thought I hadn't paid duties. They go back. Then I get this like call from FedEx saying, my package has been rerouted to the delivery center and I have to go pick it up. I call FedEx and I say, but I paid duties. Why do I have to come pick it up now? They're like, no, we'll deliver it. We'll update your statement. Or so they updated it again and again tried to deliver it. Again, thought I hadn't paid duties, went back and said I had to pick it up again. And I had 4 days to do it before it was sent back to the seller. I had to call them again. Anyway, long story short, it took like 3 attempts to actually get. So it showed up like a week later than it was supposed to. Not that it was urgent, but anyway, that's why FedEx is in the canal. That is the most convoluted delivery of a package I've had in I don't know how long. FedEx is terrible. And if you are a cycling brand shipping to Canada, please find another way of sending packages to Canada besides FedEx.
I find DHL is the best. Deutsche Post. The Germans, they just get you your package quickly.
I've heard bad. It can be bad in other countries, but in Canada, at least shipping to Canada, DHL is the way to go. I don't know. DHL does it seamlessly. I don't know. So FedEx should be able to as well. Like, it was the most frustrating experience. So that's how it's tied to cycling. If you're a cycling brand, use something else.
Okay, next segment. It's the return of We Rate Your Bike for Free. This is a service that we offer our listeners here on Cycling Fashion Week. You send us pictures of your bike at either via DM on Instagram at Cycling Fashion Week, or you email us at cyclingfashionweek@gmail.com. Send us some pictures of your bike, and we will tell you what we think about it, give you constructive criticism on how to improve it, and rate your bike overall. This week, the submission comes from a guy named Chris Cuevas, whom I believe is from Straya, and he has a Legor this week. Very, very interesting submission. We don't get Legors every week. It's a small batch brand. It's very niche. We love niche brands here on Cycling Fashion Week. And what we will do is we will put the photos on our Instagram account at Cycling Fashion Week. And essentially what Chris did is he did an Instagram post of his bike. And so I will read what he wrote on his Instagram post. He says 10,000 kilometers with you. So it's almost like a love letter to his Legor. 10,000 kilometers with you. Like, been with your wife for 10 years, 10 years with you when your dream becomes reality. So he says, when your dream bike becomes reality, a truly one of one bike from the master builder himself, Legor Cicli. I've always been a bit fickle with bikes, as those that know me. I churned through many in a very, very short period of time, searching for the one. It's here, and I can't wait to creep up to the 100,000 kilometer target I've set for myself. Here's to the next 90,000 kilometers, keeping the rubber side down. So that is what Chris Cuevas had to say about his beloved Legor. Let me describe it a little bit, and then we will go into our overall assessment of that Legor. So interesting paint job. So for those who know Legor, it's a steel frame builder. Guys, correct me, out of Barcelona, correct?
Yeah, 90%
Steel
sure.
frame builder out of Barcelona. And what Chris did here is he has essentially what is a glossy black frame, which I love. By the way, I also have a glossy aluminum black frame. Very classic geometry on the steel bike. So reasonably thin tubing on the Legor, although in a more modern way. I would say not as thin as some of the older steel bikes. It's definitely a modern steel bike. You can see there's some innovation there. Not too sloped top tube. And what's interesting in the paint job is that while it is a glossy black frame, the front of the bike, then it sort of fades to gold, and there is a bit of black and gold splatter on the front with the Legor logo as well. So essentially a black and gold bike, and homage to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think so, since he's in Australia, but that is a classic color combo. And he's got some Envy Foundation 45 wheels, which I also own, by the way, not to brag. His, though, the Envy logo is painted in the gold color, which provides beautiful matching to the gold paint on his Legor frame that he has there. Essentially, it seems like he's got a carbon seat post there. And what else? I mean, that seems to me like it's electronic shifting that he's got on there, although I can't be 100% sure. He does, however, have an Ultegra crank set, which I will criticize a little bit because as I mentioned earlier, I think cranksets have gotten uglier and uglier, and Ultegra is probably the poster child of ugly cranksets. So it's a little bit sad for such a beautiful bike to have that crankset. And I should mention it's also a disc bike that he's got. It's a disc brake bike that he's got there. So again, in the spirit of modern steel frame bicycle that our friend Chris Cuevas from Australia has there. Why don't you guys go ahead with your grades, and I'll give mine at the end.
I think if you go back to the episode we did where we rated our like top bike brands, Alex, I think both you and I had Legor in our top 5, like very close to the top. Because yeah, these are beautiful bikes. I would, if I ever need to, I mean, realistically, I'll probably need to get another road bike one day, and I'll certainly get steel, and Legor would be on the very, very short list of ones I would look to get. So it's a really nice bike. I mean, obviously he's got to slam the stem, you know, you knew we were going to say that. I want, like, as soon as I saw we got a Legor, I was like, oh, it's going to be a 10. And it is a very nice bike. So I don't want people think I'm going to like rag on it. I'm not. The only thing I'm going to say is the paint job, for me personally, I don't love it, but it is unique and different, so I can appreciate it.
Black and gold is classic. I like black and gold.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The color combination is classic and can work. I don't know. Just for me, the little mixture thing, I don't know. I'm more of a like straight line kind of person. It's not ugly. I'm not saying that. It's just not for me personally.
Question for you guys. What color is the detailing? Like there's a pattern on when it does transition to gold, kind of the head tube and the fork. Is that like a marble? Is that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah, it sort of looks like that. It makes me think of the marble jersey by our friends at Encore, the Montreal brand. It's sort of the same pattern that you got there. Yeah, I thought initially splatter, but you're right, Alex. It's probably more marble than splatter.
I actually thought it was like a smoke kind of like design or something.
It
But
could
yeah, now
be.
that you say marble, I think that might be, it's certainly unique and it's way better than, 99% of the bikes out there. So don't get me wrong. The wheels are nice. Like, yeah, Alex has a pair. You guys are probably going to rag on the group set more. So I'll let you do that. There's a lot of things right about this bike. Like, I think he's done the right thing by not having tan sidewall tires on this bike. I think the black actually complements this approach much better. The only real criticism I would have is the bottle cages just look kind of crappy. Like they might be king cages actually that are like painted black, but I think you could go a bit nicer. There's something
Yeah.
about that kind of basic design that I don't like.
I think he should have gone gold for the bottle cages. I
There you go.
mean, that would be perfect. It would match the gold of the paint, and actually very original to have gold bottle cages. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
If a Rundell sells their like steel ones in gold, that would be perfect. I'm gonna give this a 9. I think 9.1.
That's a bit. I'm going to say that's a little bit generous for me by
Ooh.
comparison. Look. It's the Legor is a beautiful bike. Everything's done right. Like it's got the perfect depth of rim. He went with some looks like steel bottle cages, which matches like the character of the steel frame. It is like a mostly black frame, which is pretty classic. But for me, I am not a fan of gold on bikes for some reason, and this is very personal. This is not like an objective consensus amongst people and their opinions on colorways. I'm just not crazy about the gold. The marble patterning is really really nice, but just there's something about that color I just can't get over. It's like me with the color orange. I have this thing with specific colors on bikes that it just turns me away from. And unfortunately, despite all the positives that come with this bike, the gold is just one that I can't get over. All in all, a very solid bike, but I'm gonna have to knock a couple points off for gold. So I'm gonna give this one an 8.
I couldn't disagree more, Alex. I love gold. I love black and gold on a bike. Actually, when I got my own custom steel bike, I considered going black and gold. I went black and pink instead. But I think this is beautiful. Yes, I agree with Warren. It's unorthodox a little bit. The choice of the paint pattern that was used there, but it's unique and it's beautiful. Legor for me is an automatic 10 out of 10. However, I will deduct a few points from it for a few reasons. I mentioned the ugly Ultegra crank set earlier, which I know something about that, how ugly that crank set, because I own it on my own custom steel bike, and it's one of the biggest regrets of my life. And I'm working towards fixing that mistake. But I would recommend to Chris that he eventually upgrade the crank set to something more beautiful. Now, because you've got gold on your bike, unlike Italian Alex, I would say lean in, go all in, just get a gold chain, get some more gold accessories to max out the gold that you can get on your bike. Yeah, I think gold chain would look great. Gold bottle cages would look fantastic. I say go with more gold. So Warren, you gave a 9.1. Italian Alex, you gave an 8. I'm going to give a 9.69, just to have a higher score
Nice.
and to have a
Nice.
nice number for the
Nice.
holidays. So Chris Cuevas from Australia, you get 9.69 for your Legor. It's a very nice bike. I like it. So we will post photos of it at our Instagram account at Cycling Fashion Week so that our listeners can chime in the comments. Okay, that's it for another episode of Cycling Fashion Week. I mean, I was going to do the ad read at the end, but I guess we don't do that anymore since we've gone rogue. We got no more sponsors. So thank you, Warren. Thank you, Italian Alex. It was nice to chat with you guys again today. Happy holidays to all our Cycling Fashion Week listeners. Wish you the best time this holidays. Please don't do the Festive 500, but hey, if you can get a few rides in there, if the weather is nice enough, why not? Just don't commit to a whole big thing of the Festive 500. Tony will be back soon enough, we hope. And yeah, we will continue to put out some Cycling Fashion Week content. It just won't be every other week. It'll be a little bit more random when we drop an episode. But in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can send us a DM. Actually, follow us on Instagram at Cycling Fashion Week. Send us DMs there. Or you can also email us at cyclingfashionweek@gmail.com. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Italian Alex. And we will see all of you very soon.
That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!